We now have one more class to talk about as part of the overview of the Java Executor framework, and that is the Java Executors class. And I briefly mentioned this before, but the Java Executor class largely contains a whole pile of factory methods that are used to create different kinds of thread pools. So let's take a quick look at this again, and we'll kind of go to it in more detail. And this will also be helpful for your upcoming assignment as well. So Executors is a utility class. I kind of mentioned that before. That is got a bunch of factory methods. Remember, utility class is a final class that only has static methods, no non-static state, and a private constructor, so you can't make instances of it. The utility class has a bunch of factory methods that create the desired executors. You can see there's a whole slew of them here. And you can use it to do things like make a cached thread pool. You can make a fixed size thread pool. You can make a work stealing thread pool. You can make even something called a single threaded thread pool. You can make a scheduled thread pool. Lots of different things you can make with these various factory methods. And it also has factory methods that can be used to create new threads. And this is an interesting feature. And you'll get a chance to play around with this in an upcoming assignment, not in assignment 2A, which is next, but in assignment 3A, you'll get a chance to implement a thread factory. And basically what a thread factory does is it's used by the Java Executor framework to create customized threads that are necessary to make the pool of threads for whatever type of thread pool you've requested, be it fixed sized or cached or whatnot. And there's a default thread factory called default thread factory that just makes a thread. That's all it does. The default thread factory implements something called the thread factory interface. And this is a very, very simple interface. It's also a functional interface, so it can be used with Lambda expressions quite nicely. And as you can see, this interface has a single method called new thread, and you give it a runnable, and it makes a thread, allows for customization if you decide to tailor the thread factory in some way, and then you can take control over the kinds of threads that are created. Many of the factory methods that are provided in the Executors utility class use the default thread factory. So all the factory methods that just take 0 or 1 parameters typically use the default thread factory, which just makes a thread. However, you can also define your own thread factories that do other customized things, like you could make a bunch of daemon threads, for example, or you could make threads that have different priorities, or you could make threads that have different names. There's lots of different things you can do with threads, and you can have a thread factory that creates and sets the uncaught exception handler, all kinds of things you can do. And then you can pass in your customized thread factory to the factory methods in the Executors utility class, so that when it makes threads for the thread pool, those threads have whatever special properties you want. And this is a very powerful, very common pattern you see a lot in frameworks like Java in order to customize the way the framework behaves under the hood. So that's an overview of the Java Executors interface. At this point, you should now have a pretty good idea of how to implement what will become assignment 2A, which will be coming out after we finish up assignment 1. And there'll be some more pieces to it, but you have the basic idea of what you should be doing.